Bulova gets really dismissed in the watch community, and I blame the citizen group for it. My love for Bulova runs long and deep, and I'm going to tell you why. This particular piece in my collection is the Bulova Accutron Railroader Proof. This particular watch was a gift from my dad. Back in the 70s, my dad bought this watch from a flea market for $1. The watch was in very poor condition, but after showing it a little bit of love, the watch was as good as new. Fast forward to 2018, and while I was having dinner with my father, I asked to see what was on his wrist. Just to give you a little back history, at this point I hadn't seen my dad in years, and to be honest with you, we've never had a close relationship, so I never really knew he owned any watches. But to my surprise, he handed me this beautiful Bulova Accutron Railroader Proof. I complimented the watch and gave him a brief history of how this watch was important in American history and in history in general. I handed the watch back to him, and he told me to keep it. Therefore, this watch evokes a certain feeling every time I wear it. Bulova are a brand with great history who continue to innovate, and back in the day, they were ahead of the game in terms of mass production of watches and also in other areas. They introduced the first complete line of jeweled wristwatches for both men and also women. Then the first line of diamond wristwatches. They were especially ahead of the game when it came to advertising. In 1926, they ran their first national radio advertising campaign. 5 years later, Bulova Watches launched the industry's first $1 million advertising campaign, followed 10 years later by the world's first television commercial. Something even more important in American history is their involvement in World War II. Bulova were involved heavily in military manufacturing during the Second World War, mainly in terms of producing high-precision military watches. Their mass production facilities were used for other purposes as well, producing many other mechanisms for war effort. Near the end of the war, though, they also opened up the Joseph Bulova School of Watchmaking, which helped for veterans learn a trade for their return to civilian life, so kudos to Bulova for doing that. A Bulova Accutron chronograph wristwatch finally made it to the lunar surface in 1971 on the wrist of Apollo 15 mission commander David R. Scott. Scott wore the watch, which had been specially engineered to withstand lunar conditions. As a backup, after the crystal on his NASA-issued Omega Speedmaster, according to the records, had popped off. Scott's Bulova watch, the only privately owned watch ever to visit the moon, sold a few years ago for about $1.62 million. To commemorate the record-selling scale and, take advantage of this, Bulova released its special edition Moonwatch chronograph, the Lunar Pilot, aesthetically a very faithful recreation of the original, which honestly was never available commercially, but outfitted with a modern UHF, which means ultra high frequency quartz movement, which Bulova says gives the watch an extremely high degree of timekeeping accuracy, losing just seconds per year. It also powers a continuous sweep seconds hand for the chronograph function, a feature rare in quartz chronograph watches. The classical tri-compass dial features what the brand calls super luminux, which is okay, and it gets that treatment on the hands and hour markers, and it's surrounded by a tachymeter scale for calculating speeds, and I particularly love this piece. The Bulova Watch Company was actually purchased in 2008 by Japan's Citizen Watch Company. One of the most significant new product releases under the new management regime was what they call the Bulova Precisionist, built as the world's most accurate quartz watch with a continuous sweeping seconds hand. Citizen developed and manufactured the Precisionist movement, whose oscillator vibrates at 262,144 times per second, 8 times as fast as a standard quartz crystal, and it's exclusively for use in Bulova watches. And this particular Precisionist was my first Father's Day gift from my wife, so it makes it extra special. Although the Precisionist movement is certainly incredible, it gets overlooked in the watch industry, and Bulova as a whole doesn't get love from collectors. In my opinion, this is part to the design of the watches, nothing to do with the aesthetics, in my opinion, but more the sizing and for many the pricing, as the pricing for a quartz watch could be a little high. I know you can't compare Grand Seiko spring drive movement to the Precisionist movement, but when you compare the difference in price, it's pretty significant. Bulova has an amazing history, and also as of late they have been reintroducing a lot of vintage inspired pieces from their back catalogs to the world. I wish, honestly, that instead of the Citizen Group buying them back in the days when they were struggling, a person more like Jean-Claude Biver would have stepped in to rescue the brand. I could certainly assure you that if that was the case, Bulova watches would be more respected in the watch industry. But it's not too late, Citizen. My advice to Bulova is to make your watch cases smaller and offer more mechanical movements in your collection. Furthermore, please make the Lunar Pilot in a smaller case size and offer it with a manual wind movement. That way, you could compete directly with the Omega Speedmaster. After all, they both went to the moon. If you still feel the same way about Bulova watches, my recommendation is to look into the vintage offerings, and I can assure you that you would be able to find something that speaks to you, just like it did for me. Thank you all for the support in helping us get to almost 1,000 subs. To all the new subscribers of the channel, welcome, and to all the old subscribers, cheers. Thank you all from the bottom of my heart. Always remember, my friends, stay humble.